Greetings, this is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters Speak on Facebook. While we continue our series of Know Your Candidates. Folks, we're getting close to the primary. My understanding is May 1st they're going to send out the ballots, and we'll have through June 9th to fill out and return these ballots. It is now more important than ever that we know our candidates and that we are educated voters. So to obtain that, here with the Independent Black Voters, we are vetting the candidates. We're asking them the questions about our community. We're asking them the questions about fair and equal justice under the law. So we're here again with one of the candidates. First, let me introduce one of the team. This is our Black Book Media team. Bria, how you doing, Bria?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
Tell them your full name.
Bria Wobble.
Okay, and she is our Millennium host. She's going to be working with us to make sure that we get the questions asked from the millennials and we get them engaged so they will vote. Today we're happy to have one of the attorneys that's running. His name is Jason Stoffel, right? Jason Stoffel.
Stoffel Waffle.
Yep, Stoffel. You're here with Department T, correct? You're running for Department T?
Yes, I am. Family Court Judge, Department T. Correct.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about you and about the department.
Okay, a little bit about me. My name is Attorney Jason Stoffel. Been an attorney in Las Vegas for 16 years. 99% of my cases have been in the area of family law since day one, and that's important to have the relevant experience that you need as a family court candidate running for judge, is to have the relevant experience. So I do have that. I'm also a judge in two other capacities. One of them is a pro tem judge for the city of Las Vegas, handling small claims cases such as landlord-tenant, credit card disputes, other small consumer debt issues. Also for 6 years, I was a truancy diversion judge, helping the community, going to schools on Fridays, figuring out why kids are basically being truant, why they're doing drugs, having sex, joining gangs. Truancy is a gateway crime, and that's important to me to figure out why they're doing these type of things, so then we can go ahead and address these problems and provide solutions. So that's important. In my race, it's an open seat. The judge that's there right now is retiring. It's important to know that the community elects judges. With that, we need to figure out who the best candidate is for judge. And in Department T, it's an open seat. The judge is retiring. I'm one of 3 candidates, and as you'll see on my website, jasonstoffelforjudge.com, or just check out other social media platforms, you'll see I'm the best candidate for this race. In this race, I've done thousands of motion hearings, hundreds of trials. I got the experience, but I'm here today to help answer some questions you might have about my candidacy.
Well, thank you. We are the Independent Black Voters, and we want to talk specifically about our community because we've seen improvements in the courts, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And we believe that if we are informed and we bring the right people in, that we'll be able to see more of a balanced and less bias as we come in and deal with the issues of family in family court. So, Jason, I'm going to go back first before we ask you some questions. I know you said you did some truancy, so that should give you a little basis and understanding with some of the things that are going on in family court.
Right.
Just from your ideas, tell me, what do you think, as you've done investigations, what do you think of some of the things that the kids are dealing with that's causing truancy, and what do you think is causing it? What do you think some of the solutions are?
Causing it, a couple things. One is poverty. Some of the kids that I would speak with, they say, I didn't have a ride to school today, and it's going to be 110 out. I'm not walking home in that, so why walk to school that way? Some of them come to our busing system. If you're 1.9 miles away, you don't get a bus. Mm-hmm. If you're 2 miles away, you get a bus. It's wrong. Mm-hmm. But what can a family court judge do about it? Really nothing, other than to really encourage other people to get involved and change these things. Why are we doing things to prevent kids from going to school? That's one of the things there. The other thing is just motivation. Some kids are not motivated. Mm-hmm. They figured, I'll just go to school for a couple years and I'll do whatever I can. I'll be the next internet sensation. I don't feel the need of education. Mm-hmm. That's why Nevada is kind of, I think, ranked towards the bottom of education. Some of the kids just don't care. Mm-hmm. And as parents, I think you have a duty to tell your kids, you get an education. You always reach for the top. Don't be complacent just getting a high school degree, a diploma.
Okay. And you hit the key. Poverty is a big problem.
It is.
Because when people lose hope and they're in poverty, they lose a desire to strive to be better than they can because they believe I've given up. You know, as you said, unless I'm a star athlete, unless I'm a singer, or I'm a, like you said, a Facebook celebrity, they kind of lock themselves in. This is what my life is, and we have to change that.
Yeah.
So we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the family courts.
Sure.
What in Department T would you say are the key issues that you would deal with from day to day?
Well, all the departments handle different things. Some of them will be dependency, delinquency judges. Some of them will be abuse neglect judges. Department T, as it stands right now, is a traditional family court seat, which handles divorces, custody, child support, annulments, adoptions, and that type of thing. That's been my experience in the last 16 years, but knowing how to do the job's one thing, but being efficient about it, that's where I bring that level of efficiency to the bench. Knowing a case should not take 1, 2, 3 years to get resolved. Families need to heal. The longer the cases linger, the more these issues can fester. You want to have empathy for the folks that are in front of you to understand what are the issues, but most importantly, what are the solutions? Because everyone wants to point fingers. What can we do to help families? Reading the pleadings is a start, but caring about the families, caring about the healing, caring about the children, that's what it's all about. And that's what I'd bring to the bench.
Great. Bria, I'm gonna let you ask a couple questions. You're speaking for our millennials. What questions would you have, basically, as it pertains to voting, politics, family court, etc.?
Sure, yeah. I do have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
I would like you to tell me just a little bit about the foster care system and how it pertains to your court or as a judge.
Okay. Children can get removed. CPS can get involved and remove children for the protection. No one wants to have their families, I don't want to say destroyed, but affected. Mm-hmm. And when you have a government system get involved, kids end up in foster care occasionally. We always want to have families be reunited with their children and never have children removed unless there's reasons for it. Substance abuse, poverty, neglect, abandonment. There's all kinds of things that any judge gets involved with doing, make sure families are being taken care of. So what we want to do is figure out, again, what are the problems with this family? If someone has a drug abuse issue or someone has a poverty issue, there are solutions, there are options available, there are resources available. We want to reunify families, mainly children, with their parents.
Right. And my next question is, as a family court judge, what are you able to do to ensure a foster child, say they don't have a family that's able to take care of them, being properly followed up with once they're in the system? Because I do know of some people that unfortunately had to grow up in the foster care system who
Right.
didn't really feel like it was the best situation, once they got taken away from their homes, and it felt like they felt abandoned and left in ways. What can you do as a judge to make sure that they're just properly being followed up with and kind of being in the best situation possible if that were to happen?
The easiest solution is appoint an attorney for that child. Give that child a voice. No one wants to have a child who's, say, 14 or 15 coming to court by themselves and saying, here's what I want. A judge might not give them a fair shake to really understand what's best for them. By appointing an attorney and having, as needed, follow-up status check hearings, figuring out, do we have the schooling situation resolved? Do we have the housing situation taken care of? There are ways to make sure, and also, in the foster care system, we have siblings. When we have siblings, we owe it to ourselves to make sure these siblings, to the extent possible, can stay together. We don't want to break up families. You read in the horror stories at family court. Family court judges can ruin families. Sounds silly, but that's a true statement.
Yes.
So you want to understand, with the litigants coming to court, what they're going through. Understand, get to know them, ask the right questions, have the hearings. Really make sure the process is as transparent as possible, but really understand, give the folks options. Ultimately, the judge has a final say. That's what their job is. But to figure out, is it a family member, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor, someone that loves this child more than life itself? Is that a better solution than foster care? Oftentimes, yes.
Right.
Okay,
Nice. I do have one more question for
Sure.
you. So what reason can you give a millennial like myself who may not have any children right now to vote for you as a family court judge?
Gotcha. I think a lot of it has to do with not only experience bringing to the bench, but realizing if you're in your, say, 20s and 30s or what have you, you're more likely to experience a family court judge than a civil criminal judge in most cases. You might not have children right now, but perhaps 5 years, 10 years down the road, you will. And this is a case where you see young couples coming to family court with venom, with hate. And people ask me, who do I represent? Well, all walks of life, but half my clients are younger than me, half my clients are older than me. And the ones that are younger, often it's divorce custody or just custody in a lot of cases. So knowing that if you go to court and you're presenting your arguments, your evidence, you're going to get a fair shake. Some people come to court and say, I'm the dad, I'm guaranteed equal custody, end of story. Some people come to court and say, I'm the mom because I've raised this child, I gave birth to this child, I win sole custody. Every case is decided on the merits, and it has to be that way, but everyone begins as equals coming into court. People need to know that. So as a millennial or a younger voter, I'll say, you want to make sure you elect the people, the judges, that would best represent society, that come to court with no hidden agenda. I have no agenda looking at dads to say, okay, let's make sure dads win all the cases today because it's Thursday or whatever. I have no agenda. So I think that if you're more likely to have children or have child-related issues and so forth, you want a judge that's going to call a spade, that's going to do the right thing for you and your family, and you're more likely to be seen by a family court judge than perhaps a regular civil judge that has, corporates, entities or corporations that can't get resolved. Family is important, and family court judges do a lot for the community.
Okay. Well, we are the independent black voters, and one of the things that we have focused on this year so hard on the judicial system is there are going to be 66, at least a minimum of 66 new judge courts that are up for election. Some of it is good because sometimes we need to sweep out the old to bring in the new. Historically, when you look at the black community, there has been an imbalance of judicial fairness, be it in the family courts and other courts, etc. What do you think, or how do you think we can improve and go forth? Obviously, it's bringing in people like yourselves, right, who can check their biases at the door, because right, all of us have inherent biases that we don't even know we have.
Right.
But it is very important that the judge that comes in there leaves them at the door. Just because a person has a tattoo, just because a person has locks, just because a person is male, just because a person went to prison, or just because a person has had some types of hiccups in their lives, how do we make sure that it is a fair place and that we are getting, and again from the aspects of my community, more of equal justice under the law?
First of all, knowing what your job is, to look at the cases, look at the facts, and be colorblind and fact blind to the facts as they are. Don't look at the fact that someone is behind in child support, so let's incarcerate that person. Why would we want to create a debtor's prison? You look at these issues as you have that and say, what can we do to do better? How is throwing someone in jail for missing a couple child support payments helpful to this family? You're not getting child support if you're behind bars. So reading the pleadings, being prepared, and having that demeanor and that decorum. Many judges, I don't think, have that, or they take their job for granted. They believe they've been on the bench for, say, 6 years, and automatically the community deserves to re-elect them. They're entitled to that job. If you're supposed to be a true judge and of the people, do the job you're elected to do. And also, not legislate from the bench. There's no law that says if you get a tattoo on your neck that you got in prison, you don't get joint custody. There's no law that says you got too many piercings that you must not have a legitimate job or what have you. When you file the pleadings, you file your financial disclosures, you come to court expecting to get a fair shake. You'll get that in Department T. And in Department T, it is an open seat. There will be a new judge in Department T. It's more important than ever in a race such as Department T to elect the best candidate that's going to serve the needs of the people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Bria, do you have another question?
No, I asked all the questions.
Okay, great. So we've had a chance to talk both on camera and off, Jason. You've had over 14 years, is right, of experience.
16 years.
16 years, and you have. We're here at your office. You have four. Is it four?
Four attorneys, myself and three others.
Okay, great. So you're stable in the community. You've seen a lot.
Right.
Tell me something. How, from your aspects of an attorney and as a person who's running for a judge, what do you think that we can do to improve our families, to actually get to the point, just from your aspects of what you've seen in life and done, how can we reduce the need for family courts? What have you seen? Just your opinions.
Gotcha.
that would help us.
I think a lot of times people know the solutions to their problems. One of the things you can get around instead of the traditional litigation model is mediation, alternative dispute resolution. Years ago, I was the president of the Mediators of Southern Nevada, and I have a lot of mediation experience. Oftentimes, the best solutions are the ones the parties can come up with. There's nothing worse, and I've done this before, having trials when the judge, after hearing all the evidence, all the clause come out the whole day, and the judge says, here's what I'm going to do, half week, and that's the solution. And I'm sitting there next to my client who's looking at the other side, and the judge goes, what's going on here? And ultimately someone says, we could have done better than that. Well, yeah. Why do that? Why go through the expense, the hassle? Also, I will say this. People say things in courtrooms you cannot unhear or unsay. Mm-hmm. So going to court, going to an evidentiary hearing should be of last resort. Mediation is required here in Clark County in the child custody disputes, but also for assets and debts and so forth. People have gone bankrupt, fighting, spending dollars to chase dimes. Why is that? So I think to provide solutions, not only as an attorney right now, which I do on a regular basis, and offer that to clients, let's go see a true mediator, someone that can come up with the best solution. But as a judge, I would take that same philosophy on the bench to say, if mediation is appropriate in this case, maybe inform the parties, because oftentimes the attorneys, they think mediation is an attack on the system. You might make less money if a case settles. Isn't it about the family doing what's best? I tend to put my interest as an attorney backseat to a client. Do I make more money if the case goes to trial? Absolutely. Do I really care? I want to do what's right for the family. So if we can get the case done faster, with certainty, on terms we can live with, the heck with me and my clients. I want to do what's right for the family. So I think judges should offer those solutions, because oftentimes attorneys don't give those clients an option. When they hear mediation, there's a reason to resolve your disputes without me, who doesn't know your kids, doesn't love your kids, is going to make a solution affecting them. Sometimes you'll get the light bulb moment from different litigants, and it's sad to say some attorneys don't explain mediation to their clients. They don't know that there's other ways than someone in a black robe or a purple robe, whatever color robe you want to wear, can do. There are ways to solve problems, because, again, as I said earlier, some cases take too long to get done. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Mediation is the way to go in many cases, but is not appropriate in some cases involving domestic violence and other issues that there cannot be mediation in most of those situations.
And that's interesting that you said that, because here's the thing. Obviously, what is it? Is it 60% of the people do not have attorneys?
It's 60 to 70%. I'm basically told 2/3 of the time. One out of three attorneys.
Have you had situations where, without attorneys, that they are able to do mediation? Or
yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And mediators, when I do mediations, and I haven't done one in a couple of years, but I just saw a mediator last week, one of my cases. And in that case, there were 2 attorneys, but the mediator basically told the parties, even if you didn't have an attorney, we're all equals in here. I'm not going to speak above people, below people, beyond people. It's important to make sure that you realize that you begin as an equal, but you're coming to court or mediation, give it a fair shake. And even in a courtroom, some judges, unfortunately, there's a bias if you have an attorney. You're allowed to speak and do whatever you need to do. You might get 10 minutes to speak. And then the judge could say to the other side who doesn't have an attorney, tell me what I need to know. You got 2 minutes. Well, how in the world are you going to feel fair with the judicial process if you're giving, 20% of the time, the other person has 80% of the time?
Yep.
Sometimes it's a reverse bias. They'll let everything go, some judges will, with like hearsay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not an attorney, I'll just let it in. So you want to make sure there's not only this bias, but like a reverse discrimination process that they're giving a benefit. The law is supposed to be, whether you have an attorney or not, there's not a double set of law books to say, if you don't have an attorney, here's the laws that apply to you. If you have an attorney, you're held to a higher standard. Judges need to tell folks that you're held to the same standard as an attorney if you don't have one. You can do some leeway, but in a trial type setting, when you can't ask yourself your own questions, judges have a duty to make sure the courtroom is run fairly and efficiently without any bias. You shouldn't be punished or rewarded just because you have an attorney.
Okay.
I do have a question for
Sure.
you, one more. If you were to be elected or appointed judge,
Right.
is this something that you want to do until you retire? Or do you plan on doing something else after?
Gotcha. I know we talked off camera off this real briefly. I believe most jobs, especially a judge, there should be term limits. And it doesn't matter what I think or believe, but I think some judges, after a certain point, you lose your effectiveness. You might lose the sharpness of your saw, if you will. So I would say this: I'm not looking to become a judge until I retire. It might be like our founding father said, government should be butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers. Essentially, not make a career out of it, but if you're doing your job, you're helping families, and most importantly, you like the job. I don't want to be that miserable grump on the bench that doesn't like the job but is just there for a paycheck. If I don't like the job, or I don't think that I'm doing enough to help families, I could be a one-term judge by not running for re-election. But if I believe I'm helping families and enjoy the job, then I would run for re-election. It's one of those things, though, it's not something that you can't look at like it must be a lifelong appointment. At the federal system, that's different. But as a county family court judge, it's important to know you have to do the job you're elected to do and not look at it like you're entitled to have this job to the day you die.
Right.
Do it until you're either not effective or you just don't want to do it and then just don't run for re-election.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with the independent black voters. We're going to end this up by letting you give us your spiel again. Give us your information, give us your name, and just a quick take it on home on why Jason Stoffel should be our candidate for Department T.
Okay. First thing is, some judges or judicial candidates, they need to have that catchphrase, that buzz. What makes you stand out? When I ran for judge in 2014, I believe I didn't have enough experience, and I didn't realize it at the time. 6 years later, this is my second go-round. But you have to think of a cute little saying. My saying back then was, don't waffle, vote Stoffel. People can never pronounce my last name, and that's okay. However, you have to have the most experience and the most compassion with this race. As you can see, I'm fired up about this race. I'm all over Facebook. I got road signs out there in the community. I want to do the best job that I'm elected to do. JasonStoffelforJudge.com is my website. You can learn more information about me, but realizing the experience, not only as an attorney, but also as a pro tem judge in the city of Las Vegas, it's important to have that experience, the temperament, and the decorum. Too often I see cases linger forever, or there's everyone talking at the same time. You are in charge. You're the judge. With Family Court Department T, Jason Stoffel, I plan on running a very smooth, effective, and efficient courtroom. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay, this is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters and Bria Wabo. Thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Yes. Again, our vote is not free. On May 1st, you'll receive your ballots. Folks, understand the primary is important because there will be more than 3 people running, more than 2 people. So what happens, let me explain to you the process here. If one candidate wins 50% plus 1 vote, there is no general election. It is very important that we understand the candidates and we vote in the primary. And we vote for the candidates that have our interest in heart. What do we want? Fair, equal justice. What do we need? We need judges that have empathy. We need judges that understand family. We need judges that treat everyone with respect and focused on the children. So I challenge you, be an educated voter. Take the time all up and down the ballot to understand who the candidates are and vote so that we can have equal justice under the law. Thank you again. This is the Independent Black Voters signing off.